Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nayaswami Padma, and I'm here today to bring you the Noontime Inspiration by Paramahansa Yogananda. Today's quote, and it's August 23rd, is the disciple asked, "How can intuition be developed?" Yogananda responded, "The best way is every time you meditate, to sit calmly for a long time after doing the techniques. It is during this period that you will be able to deepen your awareness of God's presence within you. Go ever deeper in your enjoyment of that presence. The longer and more deeply you enjoy the peace within, the more quickly will your intuition develop." Elsewhere in his teachings, Paramahansa Yogananda explains that intuition is the soul's power to know God. And so, what he's referring to in this quotation is, as I've said in a number of the other noontime broadcasts, God's voice is silence. And so when we sit in meditation, and most of the time when we sit in meditation, we're practicing techniques of meditation. In fact, it is said that we're not actually meditating until we go breathless. So for most of us, we're always practicing techniques of meditation. But one of those techniques is that at the end of our techniques, we sit in the silence, as this reading says, for a very long time. And we do not want to engage our minds at that moment. We do not want to pose the questions that are in our hearts and minds in those moments. We want to really sit in the silence and try to practice stillness. But at the end of that period, to the degree that we have been able to experience even a little taste of that stillness, to that degree, the seed of intuition is born. So at that moment, at the very end of our meditation, after sitting in the silence and stillness, then if we ask inwardly a question that's important to us in that moment to ask for God's guidance on, response to, that's the moment when we can ask. And they often say that one can only answer the questions asked. And so we need to ask, and we need to ask correctly with a humble heart, and not, sort of jump in and say what it is mentally that your mind wants to hear, but actually to listen, to mentally ask that question, and then to listen in that stillness. And the answer may or may not come to you. An answer may or may not come to you in that moment. It may come later in that day. It may come later in that week. It may come later in that year. But you'll recognize it when it does come. And if it is sooner than that, and it happens to be the same as what your desire is, I would like this to be the answer, then Give pause for a moment. Ask a friend whose guidance you trust. Ask God to give you another sign, because our egos are very tricky little, I was going to say devils, but you know what I mean. Our egos can too easily fool us. So be sure it's intuition by testing that intuition again and again from several angles until you feel fairly certain that it is a good intuition, a true intuition. And even then, be humble about that and be willing to be proven wrong, because we don't ultimately really know. As long as we're in these bodies and have egos, it's too easy to fool ourselves. So be very careful and have a lot of respect for true intuition, the soul's power to know God. Joy to you, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye bye now.